Morning, everyone. Today is the 14th of August. It's another Monday. It's another weekly market analysis that we are doing. My name is Pedro. I'm the senior market analyst at Alphachain. And in this session, as always, we are going to take a look at what happened last week in terms of news and how the market moved. And we are looking ahead already to what we are expecting for this week in terms of catalysts, and also what we're expecting from the market. Usually cover four different types of markets, all the way from FX, the indices, commodities, and we complete it with crypto, particular Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? So what happened last week? Like, it was a quiet week in the beginning until Thursday, where we finally had US CPI being announced, right? So the first 3 days, the market was literally in a range. There wasn't that much going on. As you can see in here, it was low impact news all the way through until finally we arrived to Thursday, where we had the CPI. So CPI in the US was the biggest catalyst. And what did we have? It was slightly better than actually the market was forecasting. Come out at 3.2% instead of 3.3. Again, last month it was at 3%, like it was a big decline. In here, if you actually pay attention to, if this loads, if you actually pay attention to what we had, or what we're having since basically last year, July last year, that we created the peak at 9.1%. We have been declining every single month, has been lower than the previous one. And this is the first time actually that we have a higher CPI data coming out, comparing with the previous month. Like, and we were kind of a little bit expecting that to happen, and in particular more for next month. One of the main reasons is because also the energy prices are starting to increase. We have oil now breaking above this $85 mark, with maybe even more room to the upside, and natural gas as well. That alone can be inputted into the cost of some product services, which is going to eventually can increase or can bring this CPI and inflation back to the upside. However, at this point, the main concern is still the services CPI, that it's still quite steady to the upside. The core CPI that remain the same, with 0.2% on a monthly basis, still remaining at 4.7 comparing with the year over year. So that's still the same. There's really not much change. Even the way market reacted to it, there was a small reaction in the moment, but after that there was no momentum. The market didn't really reacted to the CPI. One of the reasons for that as well is because until we have the next Fed meeting, which is going to be on the 20th of September, like still 1 month and basically 5 weeks away from now, there's going to be another CPI data being announced, right? The same way that's going to be another labor market non-farm payroll announcement in September. And that's why also these big data points that are coming out in August may not have as high impact at this point in the market, because again, whatever decision the Fed is going to do in September is still going to be based on the most recent data release, which is going to be in September. So bear in mind also that information. And then what we have also is the PPI, which come out a bit higher than expected, and it shows a little bit of the exactly those concerns still in here at 0.3% on a monthly basis, when the market was expecting only 0.2%. Being at this point, if not mistaken, at the core at 2.7% year over year. What also we had, it was in the UK, so we had GDP coming out much better than expected at 0.5% instead of 0.2%. So that's good in terms of in the UK. However, the market is still worried about more wage and inflation dynamics to see what maybe the Bank of England is going to do the next time that they're going to also have another interest rate decision, which is going to be exactly the data that we are going to have this week. Like this week actually is going to be more focused actually in the UK than anything else, a little bit in China as well. So we have unemployment in the UK tomorrow in the morning. So let's see what will the numbers be. It was quite good last month. Still expecting to be at 4%, and then the CPI that's going to be announced in where is it? I'm just looking at this 1 second. Should be looking at this, and then the CPI is going to be on Thursday. On Wednesday, which is still expecting to continue to decrease. Actually, a big decrease in here from 7.9% to 6.8%, and the core CPI to just a small lower number in here at 6.8%. So let's see. One of the main reasons for this big decline as well is the energy costs. Like finally, the household energy bills, they declined sharply in this last month or so, and that's going to be reflected most likely in the CPI. In here. So that's basically the main points to look at in terms of the UK for this week. Then we're going to have a CPI also in Canada, and we are going to have interest rate decision in New Zealand, which is expected to continue the pause that they announced last month. And yes, that's basically it in terms of the big data. We have retail sales. That's something to pay attention to, which is expected to be higher than the comparing with the last month. Also, we had the holiday in the 4th of July. We have also a holiday season, so maybe are going to still see these retail sales quite higher, but this may just be a one-off, or expecting these numbers to decrease as we go throughout the remaining of the year, because the credit cards in here, the savings are from families in the US, they are struggling at this point. So don't be surprised if these retail sales starting to decrease in the next few months. And that's what we have. So looking now of what to expect from the market. Just one last point is in regards to China. They are struggling. The economy doesn't look as good as they would like. Any data, even in terms of the balance accounts from last week, exports and imports lower than expected. Manufacturing as well, not as good as expected. Retail sales as well. Let's see the numbers tomorrow. But they are struggling a little bit, and this can have a little bit of an impact as well. Overall, even in the remaining in the rest of the world and in the commodities sectors as well. Again, China has tried to input some stimulus into the economy, maybe not as much as the market would like, or to have a real impact in the China's economy in here. So looking at what the market has been doing, like, so again, most of the week it was a little bit in the range until finally after the CPI and in particular on Friday, we continued to move the momentum to the upside, and it finally went above this highs. Basically, price finally reacted from a level that we have been waiting for the last 10 days or so in here. So that's something that finally happened, and we'll see now what's going to occur next. Are we going to have a little bit of a correction in here on the dollar and look for price to move a little to the downside, or are we going to be just a continuation and strong dollar in here, which maybe it's going to be again continuation to the downside on the indices. So question mark is, are you going to have a little bit of a correction, or are you going to just continue the momentum in the same direction that we have basically for 1 month when we started on the 20 bottom in here at on the dollar index back in the 14th of July, basically literally 1 month ago. So that's kind of a little bit of the question mark. Again, continuation or a little bit of a retracement at this point, maybe targeting again last week's lows in that situation. Overall, if we do continue to move higher, then we may start looking for these highs in here from at the end of June, maybe as a potential level to look for, maybe 104.5 as a potential continuation if that price wants to do. So maybe in particular this low, if you manage to break last Friday's low, maybe then you can have a little bit more room to downside, and maybe that can help. So question mark is from this level, which side price is going to break first or not. That's a little bit of what we are looking for. This morning already have a little bit of a move to downside. However, that may still not be enough to see a deeper correction in here. Looking at the indices, like we have been in this move or correction to the downside. In particular, there is this break of a trend line that we have in here that started all the way since the middle of March, and that may open a little bit more the room to the downside. We have been positioning ourselves as to look for these bearish signs or potential sell setups. That's kind of what we've been looking for the last 2 weeks. If you've been following the content, that's exactly what I've been looking in the indices. However, we may have, or we may be about to have a little bit of a correction in here before maybe the continuation to the downside. Something important to pay attention is that we have a little bit of this structure, and we have a little bit of this zone just above it. So even if you go above these mid-range highs that we have in here, there's still a high probability zone in there close to the highs that can still push to the downside. So this is just something to keep an eye on particular on the S&P. In terms of potential targets for a low, again, we may retest even these highs in here, the previous high from August. That could be eventually a good range to play along it on the S&P. Yeah, that's maybe the range that you'll be looking for. So let's see how price is going to navigate through this throughout this level. Don't forget that last year, actually, it was exactly around this time, on the 16th of August, 16th of August, exactly this week, that we picked, and price then had this big correction in here, in particular with that speech on the 26th of August from the Fed that literally created this momentum to the downside. So let's see if by any chance there is any correlation with the timing being kind of in August, where we're going to have any kind of bigger correction here on the indices as well, or it's just a small correction and price will just continue to the upside. So again, just a normal standard setup could be the retest of the trend line and maybe continue to the downside. That could be maybe one of the potential setups, but in particular, just myself, I'm going to be looking in between these two levels in here to see what may happen and what type of opportunities we may have. But if the dollar wants to turn a little bit to the downside, maybe we can have a little bit of a correction here on the S&P. Nasdaq, quite similar. Nasdaq actually has been a little bit more bearish than the S&P. S&P is kind of catching up right now. So we already broke this upper trend line as well. And we kind of now retested this low. Again, maybe this range in here is something to pay attention to. If by any chance we want to go all the way and maybe retest that high from August, maybe this is maybe the range that you're going to be looking for, right? So again, just play zone by zone. There's no guarantee that price wants to go all the way in there at this point. And we still have a little bit of structure here that we can pay attention to. But yeah, maybe breaking below this level can open a little bit more room. Price actually could react a little bit from this upper trend line, since basically beginning of the year when we started this bullish momentum, correct a little bit and then maybe go a little bit down. Again, similar to S&P, we have this value here that can be faked out and price can then go to the downside in there. Looking still in between this or at the highs from last year, price is reacting really nicely from the level that we noticed, but there's maybe one last zone just above it in here. So I don't really, at this point, I think price still has more structure in here to respect it and to continue to move downside. So that's still maybe that potential. So that's what we have in here on the indices. Again, we have been moving to downside for quite a while. As you can see in here, it's kind of basically picked 1 month ago. We have a slightly bullish candle in there without really breaking new highs, and also we had 2 negative weeks in a row. So maybe I'll do a potential correction before a continuation to the downside. Dow has been a little bit more in a range. a little bit more incised. So that's basically what you have in here. If you don't like to trade ranging markets, this is a good example of maybe what you can try to aim to do. Maybe you can, it's always easier after the fact, but yes, buying the lows and maybe kind of selling the highs, that's maybe an approach. Eventually, I don't like maybe this level that price could eventually go to, but we haven't broken really this level, so there's no guarantee that price wants to go there just yet. So again, we are in that range in that particular moment. Then we have DAX also kind of correcting a little bit, and we are kind of within this level. That's what we have basically since last week. We managed to break slightly this level in here. That maybe is a little bit more to the upside, but maybe price wants to go a little bit lower before actually making that move. We'll see. So there are a few levels in here that I'm looking for. In this particular case, we kind of broke that level, so that opens a little bit more room to the downside in the bigger picture. But meanwhile, we may navigate between this level. Price can even retest these levels first as well before maybe moving to the downside. So there's a little bit of these potential setups in here on DAX. Again, strong range in here. So let's see which direction we're going to break through. Euro index, this is something that we also paid attention to, and the correction a little bit to the upside on the euro. Now, bigger picture, this is kind of what we have. Again, that's a level that we noticed on the left side. It was really good. We went all the way through. There was maybe a little bit more room to downside, so I'm still going to be open for that possibility of eventually seeing this euro index moving a little bit lower. And where from? This was a really good level that we paid attention to on Friday in terms of a little bit of correction. Price kind of still a little bit more room, so price can correct this level and go higher. So maybe the last zone that maybe this euro index wants to go to before maybe moving to downside, it's a bit higher, it's a bit towards that zone. We can accumulate a little bit of this liquidity in here, maybe even create a little bit of another high before maybe having that move and maybe fill out this targeting this low, and then if not even a little bit lower. So that's something to keep an eye on. This is kind of a real possibility that we have in here. And if you by any chance wants to keep pushing this euro to the downside, maybe dollar actually wants to go a bit higher. So this is something to keep an eye on. And then the yen, right? So the yen is one of particular currency that you need to keep an eye on. Like we are getting really close to these lows, and in particular, dollar yen broke above, like finished the week just breaking above the 145. And as you know, that 145 is kind of a key level that the Bank of Japan likes to pay attention to. Therefore, there's going to be pressure for the government of Bank of Japan eventually to do something about it. And in this case, it would be to intervene by buying 10-year government bonds, Japanese government bonds in there. If not mistaken, they may have announced 2 weeks ago that that's something that they may plan to do. However, of course, they will not announce when. It's going to be a surprise. And as long as dollar yen continues to go slightly above that level, that's maybe what you're going to happen. It happened last year, not just once, then even once in September, then I think another time in October, when we finally peaked in the dollar yen. So as long as it continues to go higher, that's going to be a lot of pressure. In this particular case, it will be as long as continue to move to the downside, this yen index, that's going to be a lot of pressure. Looking in here, at this point, we were ranging quite a lot for a couple of days in here, and this is the key structure. As long as this holds, we may just continue to move to the downside. This level kind of needed to be broken in order to start looking higher. This holds, more pressure to the downside. Again, I'll be surprised if these lows are not taken. There's one last zone in here that price could react from. However, we may even go all the way through and break new lows before maybe making another move to the upside. This is just something to look at. Again, in here, we don't really have any more historical data on the left side, so it makes it harder to predict exactly maybe where that turn is going to happen. So yeah, helping with the dollar yen or any other yen pairs may help to identify maybe when this is about to happen. But it's important to follow yen index. That can be really good cool when maybe you're going to be close to this turn. Maybe you can draw some kind of trend line in here. And if that's happened, maybe it already broke slightly that level. So we'll see what's going to happen. Keep track of it. And if all of a sudden there's a lot of liquidity happening on the end pairs, you know why. Looking at individual currency pairs, in this case, euro dollar, right? So what we had, like, so this was something that you're looking for as well, for price to break above the size. That happened with the CPI. Something interesting is that while dollar index managed to break the high from the beginning of the month, euro is still quite far away from actually breaking these ones, right? So basically, just if the euro wanted to follow dollar index, euro should have broken these lows as well. But at this point, it hasn't done so. So it's kind of a little bit lagging in this particular case. Something else that matters to look at is that euro actually managed to break these highs and dollar index didn't do it, right? Just to give an example of what I'm talking about. So with the CPI, as you can see, dollar index managed to respect these lows. Euro broke the highs. And in this case, dollar index has already broken these highs and euro is respecting the lows. So that's kind of the information that we have in here. And how can you use it? This is a sign that maybe euro wants to go slightly a little bit more to the upside, and maybe these lows are actually about to be respected. Or not, or by any chance, this just means that actually euro is maybe lagging a little bit, so we need still to come maybe somewhere in there before making another move to the upside. Right, so that's a little bit of question mark in there. So at this point, two assets that are super correlated, they are reacting from different zones. Maybe price still wants to go a little bit lower. That could happen. In this case, price maybe could go a little bit more to the downside. This morning we are having this correction to the upside. So let's see exactly what's going to happen there. If this is kind of an engulf upwards, yeah, it may be. Again, are these walls going to hold it and euro going to go higher from here, or going to take these walls before making another move to the upside? So that's a little bit of what we have. Again, this week there's not really much information in regards to the eurozone that may affect the market. Opposite, we do have quite a lot of information or data points being released in the UK. UK and the pound kind of similar. We fake out those highs, something that we're looking for during the CPI, and at this point is still respecting it. So again, pound is reacting from a nice level in there all the way, and this happened when we had the interest rate decision, the last one from the Bank of England. Yeah, do we need to break new lows? Kind of, that's the question, or are we ready to have a little bit of a correction here and move to the upside, right? So even though we broke these highs, price reacted really nicely from that level. So that's a question mark if this is actually an engulf to the upside or not, and if these walls are going to hold it or not. That's kind of another question. Or is this just a continuation in this particular case, and price is ready to maybe go a bit more? I'm open at this point to both scenarios. To be honest, I'm not going to be fully bullish because of break of this high, the same way that I'm not 100% just bearish, because actually price is reacting from a good level in here. We may create new lows in here, and let's see then after that how price is going to react from around these lows in here. Yeah, it's an interesting one here on the pound. Looking at the Aussie dollar, right? Aussie dollar has been quite bearish in relation to the dollar. This was something that we also anticipated, especially in particular after we had this double top. Right, this double top sent a really strong bearish signal in terms of what to expect afterwards on this Aussie dollar. We also mentioned that maybe this low was not really reacting from the best level here on the left. There's maybe more room to the downside, in particular maybe a little bit down in there on this Aussie dollar. And after we created that double top, expecting eventually this low to be taken, which was slightly already this morning. We're having a little bit of a correction. This low in here also managed to keep holding price, even though we managed to break a little bit of a high. We never broke the structure. There you go. Diego, one of our members, actually asked me that question. Breaking high doesn't mean that we are getting bullish. We need the structure to be broken in order for that to happen. And the zone actually respected it. So are we going to continue to have this more pressure to the downside on Aussie? Maybe we're going to continue. So let's see how price is going to react from somewhere in there. or is this enough now that we took slightly this low and you're going to have a little bit more of a room to the upside? I would like to see a little bit more of a proper break before maybe having that turn to happen. So this is a little bit of what we have on the Aussie dollar. Euro Aussie, for example, just continues to make another move to the upside. Anytime a coin creates a new high, it's kind of correcting a little bit. But yeah, there's maybe more room a little bit to the upside as well, and that can lead a little bit Aussie dollar to the downside. However, maybe there's a little bit of a correction to happen before that continuation. We may have a little bit of a correction and then continuation to the upside in here on the Euro Aussie as well. So moving on for the end pairs, right? And this is what we're looking for. So we slightly took the highs already in dollar yen. Again, making pressure above that 145, right? So broke the highs and kind of back inside straight away. So looking left and what you can see in here, right? So we had last year this level, right? This was the first intervention from the Bank of Japan. And then we had the next one in here, and then kind of there was another one kind of somewhere 1 or 2 days after this one, and we finally picked and we moved to the downside. So maybe in here, which was 145, it was really close to 146, like 145.89. And maybe that's the next level that you're looking for, right? For price actually to get closer to that level. We actually like this level in here as a potential sell, kind of a little bit in alignment with those, with that high, becoming a little bit of a maybe valuable support resistance level, going above this high, correcting enough liquidity, and then we can have a little bit of a turn in here. Meanwhile, if you do then a break above that level, then we start looking for maybe 149 as a potential next level in here. But that's a bigger picture. Over time, from a medium term, I think if you start getting really closer to that 145, close to 146, I think that's maybe when you're going to see another big sell pressure coming in on the Indian pairs, in particular on this dollar yen in here. So let's see how we're going to trade this in this point. We're looking already to another. Are you looking for a continuation to the upside? That's a little bit of the tricky situation with this dollar yen, even though we literally look like we are in a bullish trend. And we have been in a bullish trend, right? All the way since the beginning of the year. Now we had this correction. We just broke a new high. So maybe natural move it to be kind of to continue to look upwards. We need to be aware and concerned with that potential intervention all of a sudden from the Bank of Japan. So control your risk in this case if you continue to look for more longs in here. Euro yen, it's another one that last week we managed to break new highs. So if you actually compare Euro yen with dollar yen, right? So looking at it, basically what dollar yen is doing right now is this part in here, right? So this structure in here since the beginning of July or end of June, Euro yen already kind of fake out slightly that level. It already made a big move to downside and it's already breaking new highs, right? That's basically Euro yen is like 3 steps ahead of what dollar yen is doing at this point. And we continue, it just continues to move to the upside, kind of testing a little bit now this previous level support resistance, and it may go higher a little bit more. Just one point is that actually at this moment, it's actually reacting from an interesting level on the weekly time frame and also monthly time frame, right? So in between these two candles, that can usually be an interesting level to see price react from. And it's this level here on the daily time frame. So we can go maybe a little bit higher and then maybe we can have a little bit more of a deeper correction on the Euro yen. Again, we are reacting from levels back in 08, right? So that's 15 years ago. Yeah, that's basically where we are reacting from. So let's see, but much more bullish, basically this Euro yen comparing with dollar yen so far. Again, something that we're looking for. This will kind of reacted quite nicely from that level, so it reaches target, and because of that, we kind of there was maybe potential selling there, but price never really gave any clue, any confirmation. So natural thing to do it was actually to wait for price to break above it, and we are going to reassess now what to do next in this case. That will still respected it. We may have a new high being created before maybe the turn in here. Again, pay attention also to Euro index can support a little bit this Euro yen. Pound yen also we finally managed to break those highs. Again, created at the beginning of July. Pound yen in particular, I can still see more a little bit room to the upside. I think how this is almost compressed. So there's maybe something in here at 184.7 that price could react from, but eventually can go a bit higher and start going towards to 185, maybe 0.7 or something like that. So I think there's more room in here also on pound yen to continue to go to the upside. Like we eventually broke these highs, kind of testing this previous support resistance so far. There's maybe a little bit more buy pressure in here until we, again, as I mentioned, we get closer, we take those levels before maybe moving to the downside in here again. So maybe a little bit more pressure to the upside on the yen pairs until finally maybe we go down. Looking at CAD, right? CAD, it created the high last Monday, if not mistaken, Monday, Tuesday, and then kind of respected straight away this structure in here. So bigger picture, we may still continue to go higher, but maybe there's a little bit more of a correction in here before maybe continuing to go to the upside. So we made this move upwards. We tested this previous support resistance, and we may continue more to the upside. But that's maybe something in here that can still be used at these highs. Maybe retest these walls a little bit more. So let's see if we're not going to have a little bit of a ranging move in here before maybe aiming to go a little bit higher towards this level in here. So that's a little bit of what we are looking for. Other CAD pairs, we had a really big correction last Friday on the Euro CAD. Again, reacting a little bit from that level. Bigger picture may wants to go a little bit higher, but it was an interesting move. Kind of broke also this trend line in here. Maybe target kind of looking a little bit for this level that you are looking for in this particular case. So maybe there's a little bit more room to the downside on this Euro CAD at this point, and Pound CAD also has been kind of ranging at this point. We're going to have CPI, if not mistaken, tomorrow or Wednesday. So maybe expect some volatility also in here. Dollar franc Swiss just in a range, just literally what the dollar index has been doing. Dollar franc Swiss has been falling, and we are in this range for the last basically 2 weeks, and that's kind of where we are at this point. So nothing much to talk about it. And then we have gold. Gold is approaching the lows, so we have that move to the downside in here, and it's going to be interesting to see also what the dollar is going to do, right? If by any chance dollar is ready to move to the downside, maybe we can have gold making a little bit of a move upwards. And now that you're approaching these lows in here, that's maybe the level to look for maybe some correction, or by any chance gold will just continue this bearish momentum and maybe get closer a little bit more to this structure. That's actually maybe something in the bigger picture that I'm looking for. Maybe eventually the continuation to the downside and getting a little bit more closer to this structure in here. However, based on what we can see on this kind of approach, if you do have good PA in here, there's maybe a little bit of a correction that can happen also on gold, maybe targeting eventually this size at 1,946. So paying attention to how gold is going to react from here, and paying attention also to what dollar index may do. So yeah, maybe a potential correction here on gold, since we have been looking 2-3 weeks in a row being negative in here. Then looking at oil is an interesting one, right? So we managed to break the highs last week, like going above this basically almost touching 85, being at 84.91. Again, what's going on oil, right? So we have the supply side with Saudi Arabia, Russia, and so on, cutting their production, like minus 1 million barrels per day that are not being produced. Then we have maybe this positive economy in the US in particular, maybe skipping inflation, skipping recession, that can help also in creating this upside on oil. One of the concerns at this point is maybe China, that is the economy is not performing as good as it was expected. Therefore, that's maybe reducing a little bit the buy pressure in this side in here. Maybe can push a little bit oil to the downside. On the other side, if we do carry on having oil continue to go higher, maybe 90s or even 90, 95, something like that, that's going to be a concern for the inflation, right? So CPI numbers may start to increase once again if these energy costs starts to increase. So question marks going to be that one. Are we going to have a little bit now of a range and maybe a little bit of a correction and maybe price retesting back to the $70 marks or maybe 70, I don't know, 75? Or are we going to just continue this big momentum and price maybe starting to get closer to the $90 mark in here, right? So that's a little bit of what we have in this particular case. Personally, I think maybe these highs can offer maybe a good retracement in here. Yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. Oh no, we did manage to break this high, so that's an important level, and maybe we can start looking for something a little bit more above than that level. Now, the way price moved away from this year, this was last summer, like it was a lot like this, up and down, up and down, up and down, that maybe you're going to have a similar move if by any chance price wants to start looking ahead and going towards those targets of $90. We may have that kind of a move as well, something like this. Maybe not just a straight line, more kind of, we call it kind of a compression zone, up and down, up and down, up and down, like we have at this point in here. So just something to keep an eye on oil. Are you going to continue or not? This is literally on a weekly basis. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically 7 weeks in a row being in a bullish momentum, a little bit almost indecised last week. So we maybe do a little bit of a correction in here. So that's just something to bear in mind also on oil. To finalize, let's look at crypto and what's going on in the crypto space. So we have, looking at this crypto total market, we have a little bit of a correction in here. Basically, since last week's Monday low, we went all the way to test the previous high, and that's kind of what you have. Right, so we're looking at August behavior. We have August highs in there. Lows from August in that level, and you kind of are in the range at this point. Again, I kind of look like as this one a potential move upwards still, maybe targeting still above these highs, in particular BTC, something that I'm looking for, maybe getting closer to that level, and maybe after that moving to the downside. We did manage to break these lows finally. That was the move last Monday, reacting from this level that Bitcoin already reacted from. We had a little bit of a sell pressure after we created this double top overnight already, kind of a little bit of this moving here, but it's just reacting from this level, so that doesn't really make it that bearish. There's even still this level in here that price can use by any chance and maybe move to the upside from here. We don't need, if by any chance, in order to become even more bullish, we need to break these highs to start opening more room to the upside. So let's see if that's eventually is going to happen in here. So with Bitcoin, it's kind of more of the same. Like again, we kind of managed to take that low, that kind of bigger picture, maybe a little bit more room to downside. Again, I've been looking for price to eventually break above this highs before maybe continue to downside. Those highs, again, respected them. And we are kind of in between this level. Similar destruction here is just a level that price could respect to, and there's maybe even that level in there that price could use as a long as well. In terms of, yeah, there you go. Price actually managed to now take these highs. It may opens a little bit more the room to the upside in here. So let's just see how price actually is going to react from this level and what can I expect from Bitcoin. Comparing like last week with the previous maybe weeks, there was maybe a little bit more of momentum, more of volatility in here, but it still has then quite a few days with low volatility. So that's, I believe, one of the main points is try to see if the volatility in the volume in crypto markets, in particular Bitcoin also, if it's going to increase or not. Looking at Ethereum also kind of breaking slightly that low, kind of maybe opens a little bit more room to the downside, but we may have a little bit of destruction here that price maybe can use and still push price a little bit higher. Again, this high was not taken, so still bear in mind with that. If you do break above that, then we may target or start targeting maybe all the way towards these highs in here. Maybe before actually then we have the continuation to the downside. So we'll see what may happen in here on the crypto space and if there's increased volatility in here or not. And with that being said, guys, thank you very much for attending another session in here. Feel free to share any comments and good luck. So just to summarize, dollar, are you going to have a little bit of a correction? Also on the indices, are we going to have a little bit of a correction at this point, or yes or no? That's something to keep an eye on. S&P, Nasdaq, oil also can, not oil, sorry, gold can also maybe have a little bit of correction to the upside. So dollar is going to be important to see if it's going to correct. Maybe it can be the catalyst for all the other assets also to correct a little bit. Or if it's just going to continue to the upside, then maybe it is indices and gold going to continue to the downside. Oil, is it going to continue and to create another 8 week in a row being bullish, or going to have a little bit of a correction at this point before maybe continue to move to the upside a few days ahead? Looking also at the yen and what the Bank of Japan may do if we do go below these lows and if the dollar yen continues to go above this 145, getting closer to 146. So that's something to keep an eye on. And in terms of the biggest catalysts in the UK, in particular with unemployment and the CPI to pay attention to. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.